locations across the province.
So these birds, when they get sick, they're unable to feed because they're unable to fly. Their proximate cause of death may be from freezing, but ultimately what led to them dying would be this virus.
Anna Wallace is a virologist at the University of Manitoba's Kinderchuk Lab.
We would think that some of the birds that had been exposed throughout the last 4 years or so would have some protection. So it is a bit weird that we're seeing this many die.
She says the big concern is if the birds are eaten by wild or domestic animals, and then if that virus mutates in a mammal.
That could also then become better at infecting people. That's a distant possibility at this point, but that's always at the back of our mind.
Conspiracy theories are flying on social media about what's causing the deaths, but Niverville Mayor Myron Dick says trust the experts.
So I leave it to the scientists that have more knowledge and deal with this on a regular basis. We put our faith in the professionals that know that more than we do.
Those professionals advising people not to handle the dead birds and keep their pets away. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Our colleagues at Radio Canada are reporting that Federal Transport Minister Stephen McKinnon is about to announce that the first segment of the high-speed rail line will be built between Montreal and Ottawa. A stop in Laval will be part of this initial phase of development. The first sod scheduled to be turned in 2029. The high-speed rail line is planned to eventually connect Quebec City to Toronto. A little-known case of aggravated assault in Nova Scotia is now before the Supreme Court of Canada. It presents a challenging scenario for judges. Both the victim and the offender are Indigenous, and there are separate pieces of legislation that suggest each person needs special consideration when it comes to sentencing. Kayla Halsell explains.
In June 2021, Harry Cope assaulted his on-again, off-again partner in Halifax. Both are Mi'kmaq. Cope pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. So the case is not about guilt or innocence. Cope appealed his sentence, saying the judge hadn't properly considered the landmark Gladue principles. This area of law was intended to address over-incarceration of Indigenous people by requiring courts to consider systemic factors such as discrimination when sentencing. Jonathan Rudin is representing Cope.
We'll never jail our way to reconciliation.
The Nova Scotia Court of Appeal did reduce Cope's original sentence, but then Crown Attorney Erica Kurosawa appealed the case to the Supreme Court of Canada, saying reducing the sentence didn't appropriately consider other legislation that says courts must prioritize sentences that deter others from perpetrating violence against Indigenous women. Parliament intended for more serious sentences. It's not clear when the Supreme Court will decide who's right, but its decision will provide some direction for all future cases where both the offender and the victim are Indigenous. Kayla Helmsel, CBC News, Halifax.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
This goes way beyond normal police work. This is something you and I have not experienced. A perfectly impossible crime.
That was Daniel Craig as Master Detective Benoit Blanc. He's back with another mystery to solve in the latest Knives Out series. And our film critic Rachel Hull will join us in just a couple of minutes to give her take on the latest in Ryan Johnson's Knives Out series. Looking forward to talking about that. Probably a good one to, I don't know, huddle around the fire, crank up the furnace, get under a blanket to watch that one, or you could brave the theater if you're into that as well. I know Rachel will for sure tell you to go to the theater, but if you don't want to go outside, that's completely believable because we are in a deep freeze right now. And with more on that deep freeze, we're going to get to Mickey in a second, but we're also going to ask Tori Gillis about it, who joins us now with a look at our 8:30 news. Good morning, Tori.
Good morning, Adam. Yes, we have cold warnings really for a broad swath of south and central Saskatchewan, really most of it. And then there's also a snowfall warning for the Maple Creek area. But we are seeing those wind chill factors feeling into the minus 40s for many locations, including student transportation is operating today for Regina Public Schools. So we'll have more details on that coming up in your news. We'll also tell you about how a phone scammer imitated the voice of a Regina woman's granddaughter. She says it all started with a phone call, and she thought it was her granddaughter calling from jail saying she needed bail money. We're going to hear more about that. That's coming up in your news. And a man clearing snow outside of the Humane Society was met with 11 puppies in a tote on Monday morning in Regina. The puppies were cold and wet, but once a veterinarian checked them over, they seem healthy. They're still under observation. We're going to hear the latest on that and more stories coming up.
I'm weather specialist Vicki Wolf. Today, it's feeling cold. This morning, we've been off to a cold start for Regina. Wind chill is making things feel like minus 32. And in the central region, we're feeling minus 41 for Saskatchewan and the Battle Forts. So it's a cold day out there. Things aren't going to warm up too much today.